Somewhere in the northwoods of Wisconsin, I once ran across this billboard. In my memory, the billboard is solid yellow, this perfect cheddar yellow, and then in big black letters it simply read, "Gifts, Cheese, Beer." At the time, I was going to college in Arizona and then coming back home to Wisconsin every summer. It was a somewhat strange time in my life, a time of dislocation, a time of not quite belonging in either place. Even though I'd always wanted to move out west, had wanted to move out west for years, as soon as I did so, I felt incredibly homesick. And no matter how beautiful it was there, how wide open and dramatic the landscape, how stunning the night skies, with stars that would streak from horizon to horizon, it never felt quite right. I never felt like I was with my people or like I belonged. And so I found myself constantly trying to explain myself to my friends and classmates, trying to explain the place and culture I came from. I think that's why the sign seared itself into my memory so strongly, because it seemed like the perfect distillation of all things Wisconsin. You would never see a sign in Arizona advertising cheese in that way. The gifts that the sign was mentioning were probably things like shot glasses and postcards and coffee mugs patterned after Holstein cows, but I read it a little differently. And it really was the word gifts that resonated most strongly with me. To me, gifts referred to the magical, unexpected, surreal things that the Northwoods of Wisconsin would often cough up. The old local you would run into an out-of-the-way tavern, the perfect swimming hole you'd find in an otherwise shallow creek, the deer you'd see bounding across a sunlit field. To this day, when I'm teaching a class and it's the start of a new quarter and I'm introducing myself to my students, I feel compelled to mention I'm from Wisconsin. It's been about a dozen years since I lived there full time, and I'll often joke about being a cheesehead or loving bratwurst or loving the Packers, those relatively cliched things. My students usually give me a blank stare. Some of them aren't even really sure where Wisconsin is. I've been thinking a lot about why it is I feel this need to tell my students where I come from. And what I've realized is it's because Wisconsin is stitched to my heart. It has been and always will be. It's part of my DNA. When I was working on these stories that would eventually become Close is Fine, people would sometimes ask me what they were about. It was a question I struggled with. I can now say they're stories about perseverance, that they're stories about fidelity and family and friendship, that they're stories about mistakes and small triumphs and almost making it. But the answer I would usually give then, and it's still a true answer, is that I was writing my love song to Wisconsin. I'm not sure love songs make sense to anyone who's never been in love, and I'm not sure you can write a love song without a little bit of heartbreak and a little bit of sadness. I remember pitching these stories to an agent once, and I gave her the answer, "It's my love song to Wisconsin," when she asked what the collection was about. She said, Wisconsin, that doesn't sound very interesting. She mentioned another writer, a writer who had a collection of short stories set in the panhandle of Florida, and she said, "See, that's quirky, that's colorful, that's interesting." I remember thinking then, whatever you're imagining, that's not the Wisconsin I know. I want to take you to the Wisconsin I know. So I am particularly thrilled and humbled and honored that the Wisconsin Library Association would pick Close is Fine for this year's literary award. I know you know Wisconsin, and it means a lot that you would recognize this book as representing my home state. Since I got the email notifying me of the award, I've caught myself a few times. I've caught myself saying that I won the award, and that's not quite right. The book won the award, though I'm not even sure the word won is the right kind of term in this case. I had a big hand in crafting these stories, perhaps the biggest, but there were many hands that went into this book. There were moments of serendipity, of providence, whatever you want to call it. There were lovers and mistakes and friends. There were family members, strangers, co-workers. There were bits of gossip I picked up. There were memories, memories of rivers in the North Woods and of dogs, memories of billboards, memories that got remembered over and over again until they transmuted into something else, something much more dreamlike. I'd like to thank all the people I mentioned in the acknowledgement page of my book, but I want to call out a few people in particular. I have to thank my mom and dad, aka Peter and Judy. I have to thank the students and staff at Hooligan Press. I have to thank Melanie Bishop, my first writing teacher, who has 2 amazing books coming out this year. And of course I have to thank Shannon and Josephine. I want to thank the WLA again. Thank you for supporting my writing, and thank you for supporting the work of all writers. Thank you for what you do for libraries. Thank you for this gift.